my grandkids live in some prairies, and I was heading that way. So,
I'm going to introduce Martha. Martha. So this is Martha and some of her crew. You're missing one.
Yep.
This is Abilene. Do you like to be called Abby or Abilene? Abby. And this is Ace. And they are good family friends. And one thing I know about Martha is she's an avid butterfly helper. I don't know what to call you. She knows all about the butterflies. And she has gifted us a lot of the milkweed with the butterflies in all the stages already over the years. And she came last year with Abby's help. And it was so interesting, we opened it up for everyone. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, we're really excited.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. All right, well, my passion for monarch butterflies began when I was a kid. I grew up in Oregon. My dad is Brian Root. He was a teacher at the high school for years and years and years. And my parents used to, well, they still live on Oak Street. And it used to be where across from Netherwood there was fields, just open fields. There's all houses now. But when it was all fields, he would take me over, it was just a couple houses away, and let me run and chase butterflies. Because I was an only child and I had a lot of energy and I needed to run it out. So that was our pastime. My dad and I would go over there and chase butterflies with nets. Then they started to have they would sell milkweed at the farmer's market in the Capitol, around the square in the summer. And so we would get milkweed that had eggs or caterpillars on it, and I would take it home and watch the process on my porch. And then when I became an adult, I started to take an interest to it and heard that monarchs were at one point on the endangered species list, and thought about what I could do to help, since I've always had just like a passion and an interest for them. They're no longer currently on the endangered species list. Right now they're on a vulnerable, kind of like a watch list. And it's actually, we want them to be put on the actual endangered list because then they have more resources and more funds to protect them. There's more rules about what you can do with them if they're on the list. So it's actually a good thing if they can get on the list. Other than that, it means they're not doing well in their population. So yeah, that's kind of where I got started, and now I'm passing my love of butterflies and all insects really onto my kids. And when I get too many, when I find too many eggs, which does happen almost every summer, that I don't want to take care of them all, I start asking neighbors if they want to watch the process. I start asking friends. I'm a teacher, so I know a lot of people from the school district, and I share my love with all of those people. So I just want to tell you, we're going to start from the beginning today. Someone want to walk around and show the egg? Okay, I'm just going to walk through the aisles, hold it here, and then you might have to point it out. This is how it starts. A monarch butterfly lays an egg. It is about the size of a pencil tip. If you know what you're looking for, it's easy to find. They're easy for me to find. However, if you don't know what you're looking for, if you've never done it, you wind up with a bunch of little white specks that aren't eggs. Because there are other white specks on plants. There's other insects that lay on milkweed, and there are also the milk from the milkweed plant can kind of pool up like a little dot, and that can kind of look like the egg. But the telltale sign of a monarch egg is if you look really, really closely, it comes to a point at the end. So it's not a sphere. It's not round like a swallowtail egg is a sphere. The monarch egg looks round, but then if you look really carefully, it comes to a little point. So that's how I can always tell if I'm questioning, is I turn it to the side and I see if I can find that point. They tend to lay eggs in clusters. So if you find one egg, I know I'm going to find more in the surrounding plants. So then I'm like, oh boy, okay, kind of hit the jackpot here. I know I'm going to be able to bring a lot home. What I usually do is clip the milkweed from the stem and put it in cold water, and that seems to kind of keep it. So I just find this It's a weed that grows everywhere. And actually, if you clip it down like this, a new plant, a new like center of the plant will start to form where you clip it off. And it's actually good for the plant to clip it down. So I just clip a little bit off, put it in a vase on my porch, and I have this. My whole porch is covered in vases with milkweed. And the milkweed plant is the only plant that monarch butterflies lay their eggs on, and it is the only thing that the caterpillars eat. Caterpillars eat exclusively milkweed until they turn into a chrysalis, and then as butterflies they eat nectar from flowers like every other butterfly. All right, so that was the first stage. The next stage is a caterpillar, and when the caterpillar hatches out of its egg, I'm going to give you. Do you want a turn? Do you want to walk around with this one now? Okay. We name them at our house. Yeah. This is Lila. Yeah. And she is and we don't know if they're a boy or a girl until they reach the butterfly stage. Since they're butterflies, there's an easy telltale sign to see if it's a boy or a girl. It's a design on their wings. There's a black dot in a certain spot if it's a boy, and there's not one if there's a girl. As a caterpillar, we just guess, and they don't seem offended. But this is probably a second, maybe a third instar caterpillar. There's 5 instars before they reach before they go into the chrysalis. Maybe this is a second instar. When they first hatch, they're so small, they're almost harder to see than the egg. The egg is easier to see than this teeny tiny baby monarch that comes out because it's greenish, blackish kind of in color, and with the leaves, those are very, very hard to see. So Abby, walk around with Lila here, second star. So this caterpillar came out of its egg probably about 5 days ago, and it's already like probably 20 times the size that it was when it came out of its egg. They grow incredibly fast. It's really cool to see. And then I'll have Ace follow up with, where'd Jeffrey go?
Thank you.
You want to just take him and not the leaf? Okay. When they get to be at least, this is probably a 4th instar, and when they get to be at least 4th instar, I do let my kids hold them. They know how to do it really, really carefully. We don't hold the little ones just because they're too easy to squish, but let's wait for his back feet. They're very, very slow. You have to be very patient. It has to decide to kind of crawl onto you because their back feet are so sticky so that they can stick to their plants that they, there you go, follow up in the same order Abby did. That you've got to wait so that you don't pull its sticky legs away from it because that could hurt it. Yes, this is Jeffrey. So he's probably about halfway through his growth cycle. He will become about the size of Ace's thumb there, about the size of my pinky, before they go into a chrysalis. So if he's on Ace's thumb, you can compare. That's how big he's going to be. Monarch caterpillars, since they only eat the toxins, or they only eat the milkweed, which is a toxic plant to most animals, they're not an ideal bug for a lot of birds and other insects to eat because the milk from milkweed is toxic to a lot of animals. Some have adapted and eat them just fine, and they are in danger when they're in this docile caterpillar state. Thank you. Lila, back you go. But they, what was I saying? That they eat, that the milkweed is toxic and that they are not an ideal predator, but that a lot of things do eat them. So
Are you saying they can eat the milkweed? Or
they eat the milkweed, yep. And that's the only plant they eat is milkweed. But other animals then don't really like to eat them because of the toxics in the milkweed.
Oh, we did when that happens.
Yep. Yep. Only about 5% of monarch eggs laid make it to the butterfly stage, left in the wild. 5%. So each monarch lays hundreds and hundreds of eggs, but then from the time that we're at the egg here, which the eggs do get eaten quite a bit by different insects that reside on these. Ants live on these, on milkweed. Earwigs live on milkweed. Milkweed beetles live on milkweed. So all sorts of spiders.
So you're saying a lot of them get ate up.
Yep, a lot of them get eaten, and then even by the time they're a little caterpillar, they're very susceptible to other bugs eating them that have developed those kind of, the toxins don't bother them. So
They have a hard time, don't
they
they?
do 5%. 5%. However, if I find the egg or a caterpillar, bring them onto my porch, they have a closer to 90%. Most of them make it all the way to a butterfly once they get onto my porch. Some things do happen. There's a variety of diseases and things that they can acquire and not make it. They can also, they sometimes jump into the water for unknown reasons. That doesn't go well.
Take a bath.
Yeah, no, they can't swim. That's never a good thing. There's something called a tea fly, which lays its eggs on the caterpillar, and then it eventually kills the caterpillar. It's disgusting. And then there's also another disease. It's a parasite that lives on milkweed called, the abbreviation is OE. I won't even try to say the whole name of the parasite. It's very complicated. But that is a really bad thing for monarchs because it's not always noticeable. So then they can fly away like they're fine, and then spread that parasite to lots of other ones. So once our caterpillars get to be full adult butterflies, I test them for OE. So you just take a little piece of tape, like not the super duper sticky tape, just like regular Scotch tape, and I really, really gently, I wrap it around my finger and I very gently like brush it onto them, and it gets a little bit of their scales and their like butterfly dust on it, and then you look at it under a microscope and you can see the OE parasite or not. And I did this just by looking up, just Googling how to do it and looking at the two things that you compare, so that I can make sure that my butterflies that I release are not spreading the OE parasite, because that's really damaging to the population. In Wisconsin, it's a lot less likely milkweed plants are a lot less likely to have OE just because of our winters. Stuff doesn't grow as long, it doesn't stay, like all these new milkweeds you see popping up are brand new plants, so there's less time for the parasite to grow. Yes?
With the heat coming this week, what's the prognosis for them?
They love the heat. Heat is good. I actually was hoping to bring like a full 5-star caterpillar, because those are the bigger ones. They're easier to handle, they're more active. And I couldn't find any this last week. It's been cool, and it's been kind of rainy and windy, and they don't come out and lay their eggs on windy days. They can't fly. On rainy days, it's got to be hot and not windy, and then they'll really lay a bunch of eggs. So we're approaching a really good monarch week here, where there's going to be a lot of eggs being laid. So then after they grow all the way, like I said, about the size of Ace's thumb there, give a thumbs up. About that size, that's how big the caterpillars will be. Then they start to wander off their plant. So this is the point on my porch where my husband likes me to put them in a cage so that we don't have to be surprised by caterpillars all over our porch, because they do crawl off their host plant to find a spot to hang upside down in a J. So they find a spot, they hang upside down in like a J form. They attach part of their, it's like this little thing that kind of comes out of their rear end, and they attach it to the top of something, and then they hang upside down, and then they just sit there. It looks like they're not moving for the first like 24 hours, and then after about 24 hours you can see them start to wiggle a little bit, and it looks like they're just like moving around in their skin a little bit. And then after 24 to maybe 36 hours, all of a sudden, if you look away, you'll miss it. They form their chrysalis, which is, I have a chrysalis here. You want to walk around and show this one? So this is,
Jeffrey likes the chrysalis.
yeah. So this one formed its chrysalis in my butterfly cage at my house, and then I take them out, go really slow, Ab. I take them out of the butterfly house really, really carefully. There's a bunch of webbing around it, and I like peel it off, and then I tape it up somewhere high and away from other caterpillars, because
Thank you.
they can, if that butterfly were to have OE, which it probably doesn't, it's early in the season, and actually I've never tested one positive for OE. It's pretty rare in Wisconsin. But if it were to eclose, which means come out of its chrysalis, over other caterpillars, then all of that parasite would be all over. So I make sure that I take the chrysalises once they form them, and I relocate them somewhere for them to kind of have space to eclose. It takes about a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks, for the butterfly to come out of the chrysalis. So, yeah, about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Yeah. This was, I forgot to share this in part of my, when they hang upside down in their little J, and they start that little wiggle process, they are actually shedding the whole outside layer of their skin, and underneath that outside layer of skin that has the stripes on it that you saw from Jeffrey here is just like a green colored thing, which is what that turns into. That chrysalis is hardened, so it's not like hard, but it's harder than the soft squishy caterpillar that it once was. And then this is, you'll have Ace walk around, this is the skin that, you want it on? It's not disgusting. This is just, this kind of looks like a little dried up leaf or something, but it's the skin that the caterpillar shed before it made this. So this little black thing that you saw that was attached, that's what kind of comes out of their rear end and sticks to something with all this webbing. And then, and you can actually, it doesn't hurt the chrysalis to touch it gently. We don't typically touch it a lot.
Looks like
But-
a booger.
Yeah, it does. And then, so after about a week and a half to 2 weeks, this emerges, which you know that it's about to when it turns black. The whole thing gets black, and then you know it's coming, and then it happens so quickly. Again, if you walk away, you could walk away from a black chrysalis like this and come back 5 minutes later and have a butterfly. It really comes out quickly. And then what's left, the leftover chrysalis. Abby, could you walk around with the leftover chrysalis? This is one from last summer that one of our butterflies came out of. And they hang upside down, and their wings, when they first come out, their wings are really crumpled and shriveled and tiny looking, and then the liquid from their abdomen pumps into their wings, and they slowly dry out, and they form, and they become like the normal sized wings. I really wish I had a monarch butterfly. Last year I had one that had just eclosed that morning. It was perfect, but this summer I was a little behind in gathering my monarchs, so I didn't bring a full one. No, they're all pretty much like this. There's some, like I've had one be small and have been like worried because it was smaller one time, but it was fine. Towards the end of the butterfly season, I feel like they're a little bit bigger because it's a whole different, generation, which I'll talk about in a second here.
They shed off their skin.
I
wonder how.
See if I covered all my life cycle things before I moved into their migration.
No life.
Interesting.
No, they just shed it.
You can, and the question was, do you find a chrysalis on the milkweed? You can, and occasionally my caterpillars have formed their chrysalis on the milkweed. They usually like to leave the milkweed plant and go to the sides of the butterfly or the top of the butterfly enclosure. But you can find them on milkweed. And actually last summer, I found my first ever chrysalis in the wild, because I mostly find the eggs. The eggs are the easiest thing to find because there's the most of them. By the time each instar caterpillar gets older, they've been eaten or fallen off, or they get less and less and less as they get older. So finding a big caterpillar is actually pretty rare. Finding a chrysalis, even though I've been doing this for probably 10 years now, I've never found a chrysalis until last summer, and I was very excited. Do you remember me finding that chrysalis? I was very excited because I'm like, oh, I found one, and it was on milkweed. But typically they don't. Typically they go to a nearby plant because milkweed is a busy plant. There's a lot of life on milkweed. As I go around looking for eggs, and I kind of tip them back like this, and I'm looking underneath the leaves where the eggs typically are, I'm often saying hi to spiders and earwigs and milkweed beetles and ants, all sorts of insects. Yeah. So the monarchs are by far my favorite species of butterfly because they're just so amazing. They're more highly evolved than any other butterfly species because they migrate, and no other insect does that. They migrate to the south to stay for the winter, and then they start to come back. So a typical monarch lives to be, once it's at the butterfly stage, it lives anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. It has its life as a butterfly for 2 to 6 weeks. But then towards the end of the summer, late August, September, when those butterflies emerge from their chrysalis, they'll live for 9 months. So it's a completely new generation. It's the migrating generation of the monarch butterfly. And the ones that live for 9 months, the migrating generation, fly all the way down to Mexico into a forest in central Mexico where they hibernate. And it's not like completely sleeping. They're not very super still. If you go there or you see videos of them, you can see them kind of fluttering around and moving around slightly, but they don't eat, they don't drink. They find their spot on branches in these, it's a type of fir tree. I think I wrote it down. Oyamel, O-Y-A-M-E-L, fir forests. And they hang out there and they are hibernating. And so by the time they leave Canada, northern parts of the United States, they fly down there, they hibernate, then it starts to get warm and they know it's time to head back to their breeding grounds, which is all across the United States and some even in Canada. But they don't make that full trip again. That first migrating generation dies shortly after they mate and breed in the south. So the next generation, those eggs that become caterpillars and butterflies, that generation starts making the trip again. And then in another 2 to 6 weeks, they die, and the next ones, and the next generation. So it takes several generations to get back from the south back to the north where they breed and live for the summer. But then that one special generation of migrating butterflies does the whole trip, 3,000 miles at some points, all the way back down to Mexico, which is so crazy because they all know exactly where to go, and they've never done it, but no generation has ever done it before. It's just super interesting to me. Yeah, pretty crazy, yes.
Do you know what % that start migrating make it back?
Oh, I don't, no. They do pretty well on their journey. There's not any talk about, they need sufficient flowers and nectar to survive their journey. They stop and eat. They only fly during the day, and they stop and eat a lot on their journey to the south. But there's not a lot of talk of tons of them dying on the way. It's a rough trip, but it's not something that that's not right. That's not really where the endangered is coming from. The reason that there are sometimes borderline on the endangered list is because of human development and us taking away fields and fields of the milkweed. That's really the main, and other native flowers that the butterflies eat. But just here in Oregon, one of my main places to get milkweed was behind headquarters there was that whole field behind headquarters, and now there's a big, huge green building there. I was like, oh, there was so many milkweeds there.
They took all your milk.
Well, there's more, but that was a really big place for them, and that's happening everywhere. And so, because of that, leave poor Jeffrey alone.
I want to hold Jeffrey.
He's had a big day.
I like Jeffrey though.
He's feeling tired.
Have you hold him?
No. The only time I've seen the caterpillars leave their milkweed before it's time for them to make their chrysalis is sometimes they'll leave and shed their skin to become the next instar. So occasionally they'll wander off to the side of the cage, and I at first was like concerned for them and wanting them back on their plant. But then after a little bit, you can see them. They'll shed their skin and then they come out bigger and they return to the plant to eat more. What else? Yes, honey. Oh, yeah. Okay, so like I said, the monarchs are my favorite species. I do have a dead butterfly here, unfortunately, that's not a monarch. So these are not the caterpillars or the eggs of this butterfly. This is a swallowtail butterfly. It's just in such pretty condition that I brought it. Does anyone want to walk around and show it? They do?
It looks pretty, but it's not in pretty condition.
Well, it's in good condition for a dead bug, but it is dead. So I started this with just monarchs. Go ahead. Okay. I started this with just monarchs, but then when I would find other caterpillars, I couldn't help myself, and I would bring those onto my porch too. And I remember being excited to do my first swallowtail because they're so pretty. Sometimes they're yellow, and with like some black lines, and then this one is black with like blue and orange. And I remember feeling excited about how beautiful they were. And I had the kids come out for the first release of the swallowtail butterfly, and we always release the monarchs together. We say goodbye, we wave, they fly around, they fly to trees and flowers. Sometimes they fly up so high and far you can just watch them disappear. It's always this really beautiful, cool thing. Well, when we did that with the swallowtail, I don't know if you'll remember this, you were pretty little. We did that with the swallowtail and we released it, and it flew about 10 feet and landed on a pile of dog poop. They eat poop. And I'm like, well, that's not very beautiful. I'm much less interested in that. It was disgusting. So we're like, I think we'll mostly stick to monarchs. And those aren't endangered or anything. It's kind of cool and fun to watch the process. They don't eat milkweed. They eat dill and parsley and wild carrot. So like Queen Anne's lace. And there's plenty and plenty of that. There's more of those weeds. Okay. I think that is kind of everything I had to share. Do you have any questions?
Where's
Yeah.
the spot to know which one is male and female on the monarch?
It's on their secondary, like their hind wings. It's not on that one because that's a swallowtail. I'm sure there's a way to tell swallowtail male and female. That's just not my area of interest. It's with the monarchs, and it's on the monarch male has on their hind wing a black dot. You know what? I'm sure I've got a picture that I can pass around here. Find one of my butterfly pictures. When they're, you can put that in there. Let's see, there's some girls. Picture of a boy. Yeah, that's swallowtails. I wanted to find a picture of a boy. Okay, here's a boy. Yeah, so I'll send Ace around with this picture. I'll zoom in. You can see the black dot on the hind wing, those two things.
Oh, there's two of them.
Yep. But zoom out please so that people can see the whole butterfly. Thank you. That means that it's a boy. And that if they don't have those, the absence of those means that it's a
Girls
girl.
don't have those two dots.
And they're on both?
Mm-hmm.
Wings, not
Yep.
just one.
Yes.
You know, there's so much interest in the milkweed, but every time I'm walking along the road and I look at the wild milkweed, there's never any monarch caterpillars on it.
Yeah. So Yeah, I mean, they lay their eggs pretty quickly. I've actually I've been in the field and seen one come, land, they dip their abdomen underneath the leaf, put it there, and fly away. And I think they're trying not to draw a ton of attention. Like the monarchs don't really hang out around the milkweed. They quick lay their egg and peace out and hope that nothing finds their
I don't
egg.
see the caterpillars on there either, though.
So I would say that it comes in waves. Like how I looked at probably 200 milkweed plants yesterday and didn't find a single egg or caterpillar. And I think it's because over the last week and a half, it's been pretty cool or windy. And so there's just not been monarchs out laying those eggs. And also with a couple of really big storms, you can kind of get some of them that even wash away. But then sometimes I'll go out and I'll have so many that I'm like giving them away to people.
Yeah, when I've thrown the butterfly weed, I can get lots of them on there, but on the wild ones, I don't see it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that there's definitely you get kind of luckier. You hit like these waves where when I got this chrysalis here and these two caterpillars, they were eggs, several weeks ago. This is from my friend Jen. She was able to find one yesterday. But when I got these several weeks ago, I think that was kind of the first wave of those, multiple generations making it back up north. Usually you start seeing them in Wisconsin around May. And so by the time in May they get there, this was late May, early June that I found this chrysalis egg. So that would have been like the first generation that made it up here. And then there was kind of a little wave of like, yeah, I found some eggs. I even passed on some eggs because I was teaching and I didn't have time to like keep them clean and make sure they had all the milkweed. I brought this one in the chrysalis, my 6th graders actually got to see grow from an egg all the way to a 5-instar caterpillar, and they named it Marlene. So this one's Marlene in here. But yeah, I think that they go in waves where I'll find a bunch of them and then I won't find any. So I think it's just kind of luck. Yeah.
When you break milkweed, the white milky stuff comes out. Do you have to be careful with it spreading, or can it hurt you on your hands?
It doesn't hurt you on your hands. Yeah. You don't you be messing with it because you'll touch your eye in 2 seconds. Yeah. It's the worst for. I mean, definitely we shouldn't consume it. But the concern for milkweed in humans is that you would get it in your eye. It can cause damage to your eye. I get it on my hands all the time. It doesn't bother my skin, and I even have particularly sensitive skin, and it's never bothered my skin. But I am very careful to wash my hands good before I touch my eyes or touch my face because they know that can be dangerous. I guess this little guy's plant. So when the caterpillars, like Ace just broke. I'm gonna finish breaking this now. Ace just broke a part. When it's a strong plant, it's hard to break this leaf. No.
Just soft through with your nail.
I tried to.
Oh, kind of.
That's my plan. Oh, there. Okay. So when Ace just broke this leaf right here, this big puddle of the milk from the milkweed kind of pooled up on the leaf. And caterpillars, if they were to do that, if they were to take a bite like that, this would drown them. So their little mouths, you would have to look under like a microscope to see it, and I've only seen it in videos. They take a circular bite that doesn't allow the milk to push out. So the way they bite isn't just like a chomp like what Ace did here. It's like a circular motion bite that prevents the milk from coming out as they're eating it. So as like this leaf, she bit all the way through this in tiny little circles to form that, and no milkweed was spilling out in her face to, that would drown her. That would be overwhelming to her.
Do they drink milkweed?
Well, they just eat the plant, and there is some of the milk kind of substance in the plant that they eat. I know, I'm sure it's disgusting. I'm sure it's very bitter. But you're not allowed to try it. Make you
He
sick.
wants to find out for himself.
I'm sure he does. Make you sick. Don't try it. Yeah, yeah.
Here, want me to attach it?
You wanna stick it back in there?
Or can I bring it over?
No, don't be just, cause it's messy, it's sticky. It's unpleasant. It's also, it says it's toxic for dogs too, like if dogs would eat it, it can be toxic for them. Our dogs leave it alone. We have 2 dogs. It's also toxic for rabbits. We also have 2 rabbits, and our rabbits have eaten it before. Snuck out onto the porch and had a nibble, and they were fine. Rabbits are like goats. They can eat really weird things and be completely fine. Like they say, rabbit stomachs are so sensitive, and I'm constantly having a panic attack that my rabbits have eaten something weird, and then they're always kind of fine. I hate to say it, because maybe they won't be someday. Abby, will you walk around and show this butterfly what it looks like right when it just came out of the chrysalis probably 10 seconds ago in this picture.
I might have missed this, but how long do you wait to release the butterfly?
So you want to release them on a not windy day and a sunny day. So if it's a beautiful day, I will release them in anywhere from 5 to 12 hours, depending how they're flying around my porch. So if they're flying and going to the screens and looking like they want to go, then it's time for them to go. If they're still on the plant or they're still on the part where they closed on, they're not ready. They need time for their wings to dry out. So then I'll wait, closer to 12 hours. But if it's a rainy day, or you have several rainy days, that's when no one's allowed on my porch except for me. So I'm going out there and I'm feeding them. You can feed them some sort of like fruit juices, like from actual fruit, like I'll put like a piece of watermelon or like a strawberry out there, or you can do a mixture of 25% honey and to 75% water and put that out in little sponges, or just like a little bit in like a spoon. They can't land in it because it could drown them, but just little amounts kind of all over my porch that they can eat just for the time being. If I have fresh flowers, I'll cut them down and bring those in too so they can actually drink nectar, but
And how often do they eat on your porch if they're enclosed?
I'll see them stop there probably at the most like once. So if I have them out there for a couple of days and it's rainy, I'll see like each one maybe stop like one time. I think they prefer flowers and they're ready to leave, but if it's a downpour, I won't do that. We do lose them occasionally. They escape from the caterpillars, will escape the plant, and we don't know where they are. And then sometimes we'll find a chrysalis formed under a chair or under a table or something. Again, that's not my husband's favorite thing to be surprised by. He doesn't really like insects, but he really likes me, so. Hi.
Most of the hackers are we gotta jump into.
I had a pet spider for a little while. No, we lost our spider though. I like to think that he's still living happily in our house somewhere. Yeah. My husband likes to think he lives outside or not at all.
I don't want to.
Will he live if your husband finds him?
I don't know. He doesn't do anything for them. He does nothing to other than allow me to keep them out there. So I don't think he's, well, I'm sure I've had Dad go get milkweed before or something, but he's definitely not involved. Yeah. Any other questions?
So what other butterflies do you tend to? Can you tell what they are by their caterpillar? Like I would think a moth, I wouldn't know the difference between a moth and a...
Yeah, there's a few that I know based on the caterpillar. Most of the time, if you see a caterpillar outside and it's fuzzy or furry looking, that's poisonous. You shouldn't touch it. They have those little hairs are really like fine little things that can get into your eyes or in your skin and cause irritation. The American dagger moth is a particularly annoying caterpillar because it's big and it looks so fluffy and it's bright yellow and every kid everywhere goes, ooh, and wants to touch this thing. Yep. And they cause a pretty severe reaction in a lot of people. to the point where they're all just like broken out in like a rash and like really uncomfortable. Most of, with the exception of like the woolly bears, the black and brown ones, those are fine. Those aren't poisonous in any way. But most of the fluffy ones, you want to steer clear from. There are, I can always tell a swallowtail caterpillar. They're really cool looking caterpillars. They're actually a cooler looking caterpillar than the monarch caterpillar. And they have this, their defense mechanism as a caterpillar, which is cool because monarchs don't really have one other than that they eat toxic plants, is that they have these little things that they hide behind their head. Do you want to say what's the defense mechanism of the swallowtail is? Do you remember it? You don't want to say it?
Do you know what it is?
Okay. I can tell. You do? You remember? Remember when you touched
Oh yeah.
them?
When you touch them, they don't get happy and they stink.
They have these little orange things that come back from the folds of their head, and they fly out like they look like antennas, but they're really translucent, gooey orange looking things, and they smell like rotten, stinky cheese. It's a horrendous smell, and you can smell it from about 5 feet away.
Is that what Jeffrey's doing?
Monarchs don't have that. That's a swallowtail. They're cool looking, and they have that cool thing. And every summer when we get them, we have to remember what it smells like, and make them release their stink, and it's a big fun thing. But it really does stink pretty badly.
Hi, Jeffrey.
I think those are kind of the ones. What's that?
That's their defense?
Yeah, that's the swallowtail defense. It works. We stopped bugging at them with after that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I always have cabbage loopers on my plants too. Abby likes to bring those inside. I kind of don't care about them. They're everywhere, and they eat my lettuce, so I'm not as excited about them. The one we gave the neighbor yesterday.
Oh yeah.
That little green guy.
Hey.
Ollie wanted to keep it, so we let him have it.
Keep what?
The cabbage looper.
Do monarchs have their own defense mechanisms, or?
Just that they eat the milkweed that's toxic. That's really the only thing. The bright black and orange colored wings are assigned to birds and predators to stay away, that they're orange. The orange color means like danger to birds. Yes.
Those are black.
Yeah, this is a monarch. They don't have those things. They don't stink. Put it back on there, please, honey. There's another kind of butterfly called a viceroy, and they look almost identical to a monarch butterfly, but they don't eat any toxic plants. So their defense mechanism is to look like the monarch, which birds and other predators typically stay away from. So they are just kind of taking on that look like, oh, I'm probably dangerous too, because I'm black and orange like the monarch. But I see them less often than I see monarchs, but I've seen them before in Wisconsin, and they're kind of cool because they really do look so similar. Like at first I was like, oh, monarch, and then just like the shape of the wing is a little different, and the pattern on them is a little bit different. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, is Jeffrey gonna?
No.
His legs are stinking.
What? He's probably tired. You guys need to leave him alone now.
She's gonna take a nap.
Yes. Jeffrey's nap time.
How far north do monarchs go?
Canada. I don't know exactly where in Canada, but they go all the way to Canada.
So that's a long way.
Yeah, up to 3,000 miles away from the forests in Mexico.
What does it do? Take them a month?
It takes them months and generations to get up there.
Oh, wow.
And then it takes, one migrating caterpillar to get all the way back down to Mexico.
Now, are the forests in Mexico reserved or safeguarded so the monarchs are safe there?
They
I don't
protect.
know.
Versus building or?
Yeah, I don't know. That would be, that would devastate, that would kill them. They'd be extinct if something happened to that. So I would guess so, I would hope so. I don't know, I've never read anything about that. That's an interesting thought. Well, yeah, I hope you enjoyed my
Thank
my
you very
passion
much for
of-
doing that.
yeah,
Very nice.
happy to be here and share it with all of you.
Thank you for coming.